In 1973, Frenchman Jean Raspail, seeing his country being overwhelmed by mass immigration, wrote a stunning novel, Camp of the Saints. He depicted a fleet of Third World refugees landing in his country from a flotilla of wretched ships. The captain of one of the ships said, "If this horde of brutes ever lands in your country, they will swallow you up." One critic said, "Once you read Camp of the Saints, you will need brain surgery to remove it. It's vicious, filthy, vile, prophetic, and frightening for anyone living in a Western country. It portends the end of the white race." One look at France today, 55 million French persons and 5 million Muslims. You can cut the racial religious air with a knife. You might remember where Muslim terrorists shot up Paris restaurants, slaughtered theater patrons, and killed cartoonists in that once free society. More than 90 no-go zones now dominate the French countryside. That means French people dare not enter the religious Islamist enclaves. While Raspail suffered racial criticism when the book was published, its prophetic pages have come true across Europe. But the fact is, the book now applies to Sweden, Norway, United Kingdom, Germany, Belgium, Holland, Denmark, Finland, Spain, and more. No-go zones abound. European women cannot walk the streets of Paris with any chance of personal safety. The invaders expect welfare, housing, and medical care. They lack any cultural, linguistic, or educational compatibility with those Western countries. The Camp of the Saints, a speculative fictional account, depicts the destruction of Western civilization through Third World mass immigration to France and the Western world. Fast forward to 2017, British author Douglas Murray wrote, "The Strange Death of Europe: Immigration, Identity, Islam." It picks up where Germany's Angela Merkel opened the doors to 1.5 million Middle Eastern and African refugees. Murray methodically shows where illegal immigration has gotten so out of hand that Europeans are drowning in their own misery. Jonathan Sacks wrote, "This is the most disturbing political book I've read this year." Based on travels through key European centers, Murray weaves a tale of uncontrolled immigration, failed multiculturalism, systemic self-doubt, cultural suicide, and disingenuous political leadership. Accurate, insightful, and devastating, with applicable lessons for countries on both sides of the Atlantic. If you've learned nothing from history, you missed the reasons for how empires collapsed, how religious zealots killed, and how innocent people died by the millions. Without a doubt, Hitler and Islam dominate history's bloodiest pages. Thankfully, Charles Martel in 722 drove back the Muslim hordes. But today, Europe, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and America invite them into their guts. Is it Western guilt? Western stupidity? Why would anyone invite a deadly, violent religion into their home? Why? The Quran demands, convert or kill all non-believers. The fact remains that Muslims only follow the dictates of Sharia law, no matter where they land. They possess no allegiance or affinity to democracies, human rights, animal rights, women's rights, and religious choice. Now let's travel over to America. Just last week, Muslim Hamas demonstrators in Detroit and New York City chanted, "Death to America." They are imported American citizens who hate America just as much as Hamas hates Jewish people. If not for our laws, they would rain down terror on us. Oh, they already did that on 9/11? Omar Ahmad, director of the Council on American Islamic Relations, said, "Islam isn't in America to be equal to any other faith, but to become dominant." He continued, "The Quran, the Muslim book of scripture, should be the highest authority in America, and Islam the only accepted religion on earth. Where does that allow freedom of religion on earth? Where does that allow freedom of religion in America? How does that vile statement stand with their oath of American citizenship? Doesn't that make Muslims only pretended Americans? If you visit Detroit, Michigan, you can see Muslims slitting the throats of sheep or goats in public for animal sacrifice. They voted it into law via the dominant Muslim majorities in Detroit city councils. They perform honor killings and female genital mutilation across America in accordance with Sharia law. They do not fly Old Glory anywhere in Muslim-dominated communities. They produce videotapes to show Muslim men how to beat their women without showing scars or bruises, to show they won't assimilate into the great American melting pot Muslims enclave in clusters. They do not mix with Americans. It's commanded by the Quran. Kill them wherever you find them, and fight them until there is no more unbelief, and worship is for Allah alone. Quran 2, 191 to 193. Strike off their heads and strike from them every fingertip. Quran 8, 12. Muhammad's last words. Allah cursed the Jews and the Christians because they took the graves of their prophets as places for praying. When Muslim Barack Obama reached the White House, he employed another Muslim named Majid, known as the Sharia Law advocate. Obama made one of the rooms in the White House into a Muslim prayer room. Take a car trip into Dearborn, Michigan to see mosque after mosque built like forts with walls around them. You will be appalled. Muslim mosques now number over 2,500 in America. They stand as territorial markers against Christianity in America. Notice, you will never see a Christian church allowed in a Muslim country. They do not tolerate any other religion in their countries. Take a walking trip through Somaliland in Minneapolis, Minnesota. See if you make it out of those 125,000 imported American citizens in one piece. Try it as an American woman. Send your kids to their schools. See if they live through a week of classes. Notice it's the express prime directive of Islam's Hamas terrorists to kill all the Jews in the world. If you look at what's happened to Europe, you're seeing the disintegration of Western society. If you look at Canada's Vancouver, BC, you notice that Canadians are now the minority in their own city. If you look at Miami, Florida, you see few Americans and more illegal aliens. How are we going to save ourselves from Europe's ugly fate? Answer: shut down all legal and illegal immigration today. Because if we don't, we Americans don't stand a chance against our immigrant mob. Yes, it's going to get really nasty in the next decade or two. It's a sad situation when you must fight for your own country within your own country. But that's what's coming, and it's coming fast.